When you start your journey through the lands between, you'll have many questions about finding the perfect build. From colossal swords to magic beams and more, it could seem like an endless number of possibilities. One great option is Faith, which may very well be the most versatile build type in all of Elden Ring. Whether you want to run a full pyro build like you did in the days of Dark Souls, or take down bosses in a single strike of red lightning, Faith has plenty of great options to choose from. With 3 elemental damage types and some of the best buffs in the game, you'll have a seemingly endless damage ceiling. And we're going to be showcasing mid-game builds. We're also going to showcase late-game builds, and we're going to show you how to get strong early too. This is Matt with IGN, and this is the IGN Faith Build Guide to help you through Elden Ring. To make a great Faith build, you'll need a starting class with the right stats. The 2 best options are Prophet and Confessor. If you're planning on running incantations only, the Prophet is a great choice that starts with high faith. And if on the other end of that you decide that you want to use weapons throughout the lands between that are faith-based, the Confessor class may be a better option, which starts with some strength and dexterity as well as 14 faith too. They are both great options. The playstyle of Faith as a whole has you focusing on faith, mind, vigor, and endurance. That's because you want to have enough endurance and, generally speaking, around a medium roll. You could even go with a light roll as a caster. You want enough mind not to have to fill your FP flask too often. And of course, you want faith for damage and vigor so you could take hits. First thing is, we're going to start from the very beginning. For the purpose of this video, I picked the Confessor class, but you can't go wrong with either the Confessor or the Prophet class. We're going to move on to the beginner's guide and continue on from there to create a very powerful faith build. And the first place we're going to be heading is from Gate Front, which is literally just northeast of where you start. We're going to be heading to the ravine in Aguil Lake because we want to meet Patches, who can become a merchant, and we want to buy a gold pickle foul foot from him. After you get him to surrender at about half HP, he's the boss inside the cave that we're looking at right here. You can go back and buy a gold pickled foul foot. In the back of the room, by the way, there is a transporter trap chest. Take that chest and follow me directly. We're going to be heading north towards the Third Church of America, and this is going to be the area where we can grab the Wondrous Physic, which is going to help us substantially on our journey. Right there on the map is where we're going to be heading, and we're going to grab the Wondrous Physic. Now, don't forget to grab the Sacred Tear here and to check churches for Sacred Tears. They upgrade how much your flask can heal you and how much FP you get back from your FP flask too. So it's really helpful to grab those, and a lot of the churches in the game do have Sacred Tears. Follow the Spirit Springs in the back of the church. We're going to be heading to the red area on the map. And this red area is the wonderful location that is Caelid, which is a high-level area, but it does have a dragon out there that we can farm for some serious runes. Rest at Rotview Balcony and head back towards the Round Table Hold. If you started as the Confessor like myself, be sure to buy Catch Flame. If you started as the Prophet, you already have Catch Flame. This is a good incantation for us. After this, we're going to be heading to the Weeping Peninsula to grab 2 very useful items. First thing that we need to grab is the Morning Star in a carriage nearby. If you go straight once you're into the Weeping Peninsula, you could easily see the carriage here. Grab the Morning Star because we're going to need a bleed weapon. This is going to help us substantially with our farm. The next item we're going to need right here on the map is the Faith Tear. This can go in the Wondrous Physic, and this will give you 10 levels of faith for 3 minutes. This is extremely helpful early on and can make us more powerful right away. Next up, we're going to be heading back to Rotview Balcony and going to the right where there's a fort. This fort has the incantation Flame Grant Me Strength. Flame Grant Me Strength will give you 20% more physical damage and 20% more fire damage for 30 seconds. It's a great buff and incantation for us to grab. It's in between the carriages around the left side of the fort. And after we safely grab this incantation, we're going to be heading back and we're going to be going towards Dragon Barrow, which is in the northeastern section of Caelid. This is a section of the map that has the big dragon we can kill, which will give us 96,000 runes. You're going to be moving on forward through Dragon Barrow until you reach the big dragon, because we want to get behind the big dragon. We want to grab that Sight of Grace, and then of course we want to be able to take him down too with our bleed weapon that we grab. The Morning Star is going to be really helpful for us. After we use the map here, I'm going to show you directly where to go. And there it is by the second Erdtree in Caelid. We're going to take down this big dragon with a Morning Star, and if you use a gold pickled foul foot towards the end of its HP bar, it will net you 96,000 runes in total. This is going to help us ultimately make a really strong early game faith build, which is an important part here because it's going to make the early game a little bit easier for us. And by the time we get to the mid game and late game faith builds in this video, you're going to be surprised with the amount of damage you're getting. So for the beginner's guide here, I am going to show levels a couple times, and I'm going to show them now if you want to follow along, but this is what we hit in terms of our levels. After this, we're going to be going back to Gatefront, and we're going to be moving towards Stormveil Shack, which is north of Gatefront. Now, there's an important NPC here, so be sure to talk to her, because you could end up with the jellyfish summon too, but also importantly, be sure to grab the stone sword key that's here, because we're going to need this later on. And next up, we're going to be grabbing the Golden Vow Ash of War. This is where it's located on the map in Limgrave. You have to take out this knight to grab it. You could throw it on a dagger, and it'll give you an extra buff that stacks with Flame Grant Me Strength, giving you 10% more attack and defense. Next, at the Church of Ella, you can go back here now and talk to Ronnie the Witch, and you can grab the Spirit Calling Bell as well as the Lone Wolf Ashes. This could be really helpful going forward in terms of taking on tough bosses, so be sure to grab these. And next up here on the map, I want to show you where to get smithing stone wands. Early in the game, you could farm the enemies in here as well as on the walls. You can grab smithing stone wands. That'll help you upgrade your materials. Next up, we're going to go to Castle Ward Tunnel, and we're going to get ready with buffs to take on Margit and head into Stormveil Castle. So I want to show you a nice buffing order that you could use, because as you move throughout the game, Faith has some of the best buffs in the game. Make sure you have Catch Flame equipped as well as Flame Grant Me Strength, and make sure you have the Faith tier in the Wondrous Physic. Now for our buffing order, we want to use the longest duration stuff first. So we're going to drink our tier first, then we're going to cast Golden Vow on a dagger, then use Flame Grant Me Strength. Fill up your FP after. And now you're ready to take on Margit, the first boss of Elden Ring, who could be a challenge for most players. For me, the best bet here is to mix in Catch Flame with the straight sword that you started with if you're using the Confessor class, as Square Off does a lot of poise damage. By the way, you can also get Margit's Shackle, which is an item that could stun the boss twice in the first phase from patches in Murkwater Cave. It's helpful. Here's where we get our powerful early game build, Black Flame. As you move through Stormveil Castle, you'll come across a courtyard full of enemies. Down the set of stairs to the left is a stone sword key door. Be careful of the rats in the area. Behind this door is the best early game seal available in the Godslayer seal. You'll also be able to net yourself the book for Black Flame, where you'll be able to get the simple Black Flame Fireball, which is actually one of the best incantations in the game because it does a good amount of fire damage as well as percentage damage too. Between the 10% damage boost to Godslayer incantations that the seal offers and the fact that it's a very good scaling seal at lower levels, this makes it for a perfect early game faith build, and we're going to get stronger from here. Back at the Round Table Hold, you could buy Black Flame. Whenever you're ready, be sure to buy the Black Flame Fireball. You could buy Black Flame Blade too, but keep in mind this only lasts 10 seconds, and honestly, it's just okay. The Black Flame Fireball is much better for now. Be sure to equip Black Flame and the Godslayer seal as well before moving on. And then you could test it out on Godric, the second boss in the game. Make sure you have enough FP. I did run out and I ended up close at the end here. He ultimately took one try for me, but I did run out of FP. Overall, make sure you pick up golden seeds along the way and sacred tears to improve your flask. If you need help with this boss, Nefeli can be talked to not far from actually where you walk into the fog door. If you just turn around and keep going on the left side, you can talk to her and she becomes a summon that can help you with this boss fight. And Godric can be a little bit tough too. I personally find Margit to be a little bit more challenging because he's more erratic, but Godric got me down to the wire here and it ended up being a relatively close fight overall. Keep in mind that summon's available and you can also use your Lone Wolf Ashes too. If you want to continue to follow my levels, this is what I chose to do with the runes after Godric. These are the levels as we're moving into the lakes. Shortly here, by the way, we're going to be at the lakes right now. We're going to start moving towards grabbing items for the mid-game. After you've conquered Stormveil, you'll end up at a new area called Liurnia of the Lakes. This is a very large area where we'll be grabbing items along the way as we move towards the mid-game, which I consider about the Altless Plateau. We're going to grab a lot of items that can make us more powerful. Don't forget the sacred tear in the church on the way down. And once we get down to the Liurnia of the Lakes, we can really start to work towards making our build more powerful. The first thing here on the map is we're going to grab the Jellyfish Shield. This can increase our damage by 20% when we're using incantations. And that could be a huge bonus for us. That 20% damage increase is huge in the early game, and as we work towards getting 20 strength and 14 dexterity, that's going to be really helpful. Next up, you can grab the Lightning Book in the eastern section by the Artist Shack, which gives us lightning incantations. And you can trade any of this stuff in at Corin at the Round Table Hold, or here on the map at the Pastor Turtle Pope, who never moves, by the way, so he might be the best option to trade your books in, and you can buy stuff like Electrify Armament, Lightning Spear, and Hone Bolt. Next up, we're going to go to the second tree avatar in Liurnia of the Lakes because they're going to drop the Holy and Lightning tier for us, which is hugely helpful for faith builds because they increase lightning and holy damage by 20%. It can go on your Wondrous Physic. I just wanted to show the whole strat here. I was using Catch Flame on the tree avatar around level 40, 45 or so, and it wasn't too difficult at all because the trees take extra fire damage. All the tree avatars in the game take extra fire damage, which is really helpful when fighting them. You can also use Black Flame Fireball on them too, that's also excellent, but for me I don't mind going up close using Catch Flame, which is really fast and does good fire damage. Right on the map there is where it is by the Mausoleum compound and the second minor Erdtree. The next useful item to make for a powerful faith build is the incantation Howl of Shabriri. This will give you a 25% generic damage buff, and it is a body buff, much like Flame Grant Me Strength. This is helpful though because it doesn't apply just to physical damage and boost everything in total. You do take extra damage when you're using Howl of Shabriri, so be aware of that. You can't stack it with Flame Grant Me Strength either. There it is on the map there at the Frenzy Flaming Tower. The next good item that you can grab is at the first tree avatar in Caleb. This one's a little bit out of the way. We're going to grab 2 items in Caleb, but this now should be easy to fight. Between Black Flame and Catch Flame, you should be able to take the first tree avatar. It's the easier one, and this will net you the Flame tier, which once again is really helpful because it's part of our 3 elemental damage types, right? We've got the Holy tier now, we've got the Lightning tier, and now we're going to have the Flame tier here in a second. Like the other ones, this will boost fire damage by 20%, one of our great elemental damage types we just talked about. There it is at the minor Erdtree, the first one in Caleb. That's where you can net the Flame tier. And this is more of a when you're ready type of situation because Anastasia is actually relatively difficult at this point in the game. You can beat her though, and there's a Site of Grace right there. At the Smoldering Church, she drops the Sacred Scorpion Charm. Now, before you leave Liurnia of the Lakes, I just want to remind you not to forget to get the first bell bearing so you can upgrade any of your seals that you get along the way, any of the smithing stone seals to +6. This is important to grab, and by the way, you can also use Square Off in just 2 uses to break the Crystalians. After you break them, by the way, you could use whatever you want. You can use Catch Flame, Black Flame, whatever you want to throw in there because they're going to take a substantial amount of damage from there. This is an individual one. There's some of these later in the game that you have to fight 2 or 3. For this one, it's not too bad. Just have to defeat this one to get the bell bearing. As you can see, I eventually switched to Black Flame because it ended up doing a lot of damage to them. Now, we're going to show on the map here where to grab this. This is important to grab this. Do not forget this item before you leave the lakes, as you'll need it to upgrade some of your seals. These are my levels at level 40 for those that are curious. 20 Vigor, 27 Faith is important here, so be sure to level up along the way. If you want more runes as you continue, you can grab the Golden Scarab, which gives you 10% more runes on all of your bosses and enemies at the Abandoned Cave in Caelid. And lastly, when you're ready, take on the Rhea Lucaria dungeon. It's a second dungeon in the game, and honestly, Renala is not that difficult of a boss. If you use Square Off, you can break her very frequently, and you can also use Black Flame from a distance for solid damage and to take her down quickly. Now there's 2 ways out of the lakes. You could use the Grand Lift of Dectus and grab both pieces at Fort Ferrith and Fort Height, or you could go up the ravine here through the Ravine-Veiled Village, and that's the route I took and fought the Magmorum. If you're wondering or thinking why you should go this route, there's actually two reasons why. One, it's going to give you extra runes and practice at fighting a tanky boss that hits relatively hard, but also because he's going to drop the Magma Worm Scale Sword, a strength and faith weapon. This is actually a very popular weapon, but for this IGN guide, we've got a lot of awesome mid and late game faith builds. We didn't end up using this one, but it is a fun weapon to play around with. For this, we moved on with level 50 stats, upgrading strength and dexterity so we could use the jellyfish shield. Now on to the altless plateau and starting the mid game. As we move towards the mid game, this is when faith starts to get really powerful. Right here on the map, which I showed there, you want to grab the second smithing stone bell bearing so you can upgrade a lot of your seals to plus 12. We are going to be getting some more seals as we move on here because there's different seals that boost different incantations. Next up here, after we defeat this boss, I'm going to show on the map where to grab the Ritual Swords Talisman, an awesome talisman that boosts your damage by 10% at full HP. This is an incredibly useful talisman for us because we're going to be at full HP a lot hanging back and casting. It's at Lux Ruins, not far from the Erdtree Gazing Hills site of Grace in the altless plateau. Be sure to grab this. The next talisman we recommend at IGN for a faith build is the Godfrey icon, which boosts your damage by 15% when you're using chargeable spells and incantations and when you charge them. This is where it is on the map. Next up is the Lightning Scorpion charm, which boosts your lightning damage by 12% at Windham Catacombs. When you move up to Mount Gelmir, you can get the Fire Scorpion charm, which will increase fire damage by 12%. There it is on the map there. It's at the top of this fort. You have to jump over the side here and grab it near this ghost, and it is very helpful for fire builds. Next up is the Golden Vow incantation. I'll show it on the map again real quick. This is where you grab it, and by the way, Anastasia will invade you a second time here. Next up, we recommend defeating Radahn at Redmane Castle. Speaking of which, there is a portal in the fort to the right of Rotview Balcony. That same fort has a portal to get there. You can use the summons easily and gain a lot of runes. Next up here on the map at Mount Gelmir, you can grab the Erdtree seal. This is a seal that's weightless and is very good at high faith. At lower levels, we do have some better options, but we recommend grabbing this one too. Another recommendation we have for right now before we head into the mid-game builds is to take on the second tree avatar in Caelid because he can give you a defensive tier that's quite good, but he also, more importantly, can give you over 100,000 runes with the Golden Scarab. This could be incredibly helpful for your build as we move forward. Next up, to get the Blasphemous Blade, you will have to take on Rykard at Volcano Manor. Lucky for you, it's relatively a gimmick boss fight overall, and grabbing the Serpent Hunter, especially if you have the Mimic summon, can make it very easy. The Blasphemous Blade is hands down possibly the best weapon in the entire game, and you can get this at Volcano Manor working through the dungeon. Be sure to hand this in to Eni at the Round Table Hold, as you're going to want to grab the Blasphemous Blade as soon as possible. It is an amazing weapon. Next thing we recommend getting, although this boss can be a little bit tough if you're using Black Flame, decently fire resistant, is Scouring Black Flame, which can add on to your Black Flame build, and you can also grab Black Flame Tornado on the Godskin Peeler. And now it's time for our mid-game showcase, where we're going to show off different builds, 4 different builds. We're going to show the stats, equipment, everything that you need to know for these ones too, and what we recommend here at IGN. For a mid-game Black Flame build, the best possible setup is to use Scouring Black Flame up close or for larger targets, and then when you back off, use the simple Black Flame Fireball in combination with the Jellyfish Shield for a lot of damage. Yeah, for the mid-game, this is a solid one. Between the percentage damage and the fire damage, you'll be taking down bosses pretty easily using a setup like this one. We're going to go over equipment, stats, everything you need to know for a mid-game Black Flame build. And for our mid-game Black Flame build, we have the Broadsword, we have the Godslayer Seer plus 12, we have the Jellyfish Shield, same set of armor on, Ritual Swords Talisman, Fire Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon, Flame Tier, and Faith Tier. Before we do the lightning showcase, be sure to grab the Gravelstone seal in the capital. Now we're at the capital, which is pretty much the mid-game. You're going to want to grab this seal since it boosts your lightning incantations, Dragon Cult incantations by 15%. And this is exactly how you get to it. From the West Capital Rampart site of Grace, you're going to continue moving forward, and then you're going to go over the side, the left side facing the gargoyle, and once you get down there, there is a knight. The knight that's on the ground will drop the Gravelstone seal. And now for our mid-game lightning build, the lightning caster build. This uses a combination of lightning spear and honed bolt. Lightning spear is chargeable, by the way, and boosted by the Godfrey icon, and honed bolt, after you use it, can be spammed for quick damage. At the end here, we will be using honed bolt to finish off Godfrey Golden Shade. This isn't too tough of a boss fight either if you choose to use lightning, as Golden Shade has 0 lightning resistance. In the end, absolutely an effective way to take him down, and a way we recommend here at IGN. We are going to show the lightning build, stats, equipment, everything you need to know for this awesome mid-game setup. And for our mid-game lightning build, we have the broadsword once again. We're using the gravelstone seal and the jellyfish shield. We have the same armor set on that we started with. We have the ritual swords talisman, lightning scorpion charm, Godfrey icon. We just got our last talisman spot, and we have the lightning tier and faith tier too. The next one before we do our holy mid-game build, right here on the map is where you can grab the black knife. We want to grab the black knife, which is at the middle dungeon in the Altless Plateau, and you have to defeat the black knife assassin that's outside to grab this, and this does a lot of holy damage. The Ash of War scales entirely with your fate stat. Alright, now let's show off the Black Knife build in the mid-game. A very good option for the mid-game, doing percentage and holy damage. One of the best holy options for the mid-game is the Black Knife, and you're going to see we get substantial damage out of this weapon's Ash of War. It's a really cool one to use too. A lot of people love the Ash of War, the animation as a whole, being able to send out the black blades, and then of course the percentage damage on some of the bigger bosses with high HP pools. It ends up taking a good percentage of their HP off. Like this dragon in the Altless Plateau, which can always be a tough boss battle due to the resistances that Lanciax has, but if you continue to hit these dragons in the head with a black knife, you can even mix in Black Flame, by the way, if you want to, since it's helpful here. You can take a lot of percentage damage off some of the tougher bosses. And keep in mind, most of the dragons in the game take extra damage to the head, so that's a huge bonus there when you have an Ash of War like this, which you can easily target their head and hit it for massive damage. We're able to take out the dragon there with our Black Knife mid-game build. Yeah, the concept here is very simple. Just use the Black Knife Ash of War as much as you can, and you can even mix in Black Flame if you want to too. Let's jump into equipment. For our mid-game Black Knife build, we have the Black Knife. We have the same armor set we started with, Godslayer Seal, Ritual Swords Talisman, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon, Golden Scarab for some extra runes, Holy Tier, Faith Tier. Now, if you want to make a really cool pyro build for the mid-game, after you grab the Blasphemous Blade, you can grab Flame of the Fell God in Liurnia of the Lakes if you want to add on to it. This is a pretty good incantation for the early and mid-game overall because it can do massive fire damage. In the late game, it falls off a bit, but this is a solid one to grab and to add to a pyro build. And now we're going to showcase our mid-game pyro build. For this, we're combining Flame of the Fell God. You could throw in Catch Flame too, that's a solid addition to this build. And then we're using the Ash of War on the Blasphemous Blades, Taker's Flames, to heal back HP, which scales entirely with Faith. So the weapon itself is strength and faith, so anytime you're hitting with the weapon or making physical contact, it's going to scale with strength too. But that Ash of War, every time you use it, is just going to pull directly from your faith stat. So the more faith you have, the more investment in your faith stat, the stronger Taker's Flames is. It really is that simple. It works much in the way like the Black Knife that we showed off, where the Ash of War is entirely your faith stats. So once you have the minimum requirements on the weapon, you can just invest in faith, and then you could use that Ash of War to heal back HP, do massive fire damage, and really it's relatively easy mode with the Blasphemous Blade. It truly may be one of the best weapons, if not the best weapon in the game. And then, of course, Flame of the Fell God and Catch Flame are good additions too. Now, you're not always going to need that because the Blasphemous Blade is reliable enough on its own, but being able to run a full pyro build that has incantations too can also be a lot of fun. And we did get hit at the end there, of course, by the end of Morgott. It can be a little bit of a tough fight. There is a summon at the door as well for this one if you need them. It's Melina, so that's very helpful. She's very helpful. Let's jump into equipment for this one. And we have the Blasphemous Blade at +6. We have the Godslayer Seal. We're using the same armor set for this video. We have the Ritual Swords Talisman, Fire Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon, Golden Scarab, Flame Tier, and the Faith Tier, of course. And we're in the end game now. Make sure you pick up the Smithing Bell Bearing 3 here. That's very important once you get to Mountaintops of the Giants. It's right there, not far from Zamar Ruins. Next up after that, you should get the Giants Prayer Book, and here it is on the map at the Guardian's Garrison in Mountaintops of the Giants. And don't forget about our friend the Turtle Pope, who has made a few appearances in this video. We're going to hand him the Giant's Prayer Book, and you can grab 2 very good incantations in Flame of the Fell God and Giant's Flame Take Thee. These are solid additions. Next up in the dungeon, Giant's Conquering Hero's Grave, you can grab the Giant Seal. This will increase the incantations that we actually just showed, and this is a really good seal to have because you could trade in the Fire Giant's Remembrance for Burn o' Flame too. Yeah, this will boost Burn o' Flame as well, which is a really good incantation. There it is on the map there. And after you take down the Fire Giant, our recommendation at IGN is to use it for Burn o' Flame, his Remembrance. Don't forget you can duplicate it and get the other one, which is a whip, but the Burn o' Flame incantation's much better. Next up is the book for Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike. It's in the middle of the room I was just in. I picked it up at the very beginning, and that's going to give us Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike, which is a phenomenal lightning incantation. There it is on the map there at Tempest Facing Balcony. Alright, and I think this might be the last time we show the Turtle Pope, but you're going to need 10,000 runes for this one because it's a little bit on the expensive side runes-wise, but it is well worth it. This is probably the best lightning incantation in the game. Make sure you grab this one as a faith build. It's very powerful. Lastly is the Phlox Canvas Talisman. You're going to get this at the end of Melissen's questline. The questline for that, as well as the Shard of Alexander, is in the description below. IGN has very good guides for that. After you destroy Gowry, after Melissen has died, you can grab the Phlox Canvas Talisman, which increases incantations. And now, starting our endgame builds. I couldn't be more excited for this one. This is going to be great. First things first, we have the Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike build, which is incredible for big targets and does massive lightning damage. Yeah, this one involves the Jellyfish Shield and, of course, the Gravelstone Seal for that 15% boost to Ancient Dragon Lightning Strike. By the way, all these are rune level 125 builds where we're going to be showing off stats, equipment, everything that you need to know to turn these into powerful endgame faith builds. Yeah, when faith truly shines is at the end of the game, no question. It becomes so powerful, and you have everything in your arsenal to make these great builds. Let's jump into equipment. We have the Gravelstone Seal and the Jellyfish Shield. We have the Confessor Armor on again, Ritual Swords Talisman, Lightning Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon, Phlox Canvas Talisman, Lightning Tier, Faith Tier, and we're buffing with Golden Vow and Halashabriri. And now to our endgame Black Flame build. Now there's a couple different things you could do with this one. If you want to use Black Flame Tornado, it scales entirely with your Faith stat. Black Flame, Ritual, and Scouring Black Flame are better for large targets, but for me, I stuck with a simple Black Flame Fireball. If you're wondering why the chosen build for this one is so simple, built around the Black Flame Fireball, it's because the buffs in the endgame and the setup we have and the distance you could use the Black Flame Fireball from makes it a very, very easy build to use and to do massive damage to the majority of bosses. And it's actually a reasonable amount of FP to use it each time too. And unlike Black Flame Tornado, you don't have to worry about the lack of hyper armor or anything because you're going to be from a distance most of the time. We took on Godfrey and Horolu here in one attempt, and it was really easy with the Black Flame Fireball. Yeah, it's really cool running a Black Flame build late game with just the simple Fireball. It's so convenient. It's going to make your life a lot easier. If you're looking to make a Black Flame build, though, add in Black Flame Tornado and Scouring Black Flame. Black Flame Ritual is really only for the bigger targets in the game. Overall, though, you can add to this one for sure. Now, you can see the effectiveness of it here, though. It truly is effective. You're not using a ton of FP each time you use it. You're getting around 2,000 to 3,000 damage per cast if you're able to charge it. It's boosted by the Godfrey icon, too, because it is chargeable and all around a great incantation. Yeah, one that can carry you through the end game too. You can see here against Horolu, it is really convenient being able to just use that Black Flame Fireball really quickly, and we're able to get in a nice dodge there towards the end and continue to get the percentage damage that Black Flame offers too. And that is a total, I believe, of 2%. I think it's between 2 and 5% depending on the boss's HP, something like that it takes off. It's going to take that percentage off every time you use the Black Flame Fireball. And we're at the end here. We finished off Godfrey and Horolu. We're going to jump into stats, equipment, everything you need to know. And we have the Godslayer Seal, the Jellyfish Shield. You had the same armor set on the whole time. Ritual Swords Talisman, Fire Scorpion Charm. We have the Godfrey Icon, the Phlox Canvas Talisman. And then we have the Flame Tier, Faith Tier, and we're buffing with Halashabriri, and we're using Golden Vow too. And next up, we have our endgame Pyro build. This is a really good one for massive fire damage. We're using Burn o' Flame here in combination with the Blasphemous Blade too, because that's fire damage. And as we mentioned earlier, it scales entirely with your Faith stat. This is an awesome combination. Like most of the seals, this one does have a boost, and it's going to boost the fire incantations we're using by 20%. It actually does a solid 20%. There's Giant's Flame Take Thee. We just hit for 1,688 damage. Pretty solid there. And now for this combination, I like to run the seal in my left hand and the weapon in my right. If you're just using the fire incantations, then use the giant seal in your right hand, and then in your left hand, you'd use the jellyfish shield for the buff. And you'd probably be hitting on Giant's Flame Take Thee for closer to 2,000 with that setup. But I like this setup because you get to use the Blasphemous Blade, which is so good in your main hand, and then you get to use your fire incantations in your offhand, giving you a ton of versatility. Out of all the ones on this list, the one we recommend the most at IGN is this build right here because the Blasphemous Blade is so easy to use. If you're ever struggling in Elden Ring, this weapon could be perfect for you. Add in fire incantations and you can have a lot of fun with it too. Yeah, try this one out. Try these endgame builds out. You're going to be shocked with the amount of damage you can get. We have the Blasphemous Blade, Giant Seal. We have the same armor set on. Ritual Swords Talisman, Fire Scorpion Charm, Godfrey Icon, Shard of Alexander. That quest is in the description. Flame Tier, Faith Tier, Golden Vow, and Hellish Liurnia. And now into our endgame Holy build. Now, out of all these, Holy isn't the best damage type in the endgame because it is highly resisted by some of the late game bosses, but there is a great combination you can make that does a lot of percentage damage in using the Black Knife and Black Blade incantation. If you have high faith, the Black Knife and Black Blade incantations do massive holy and percentage damage together. If you're a strength and faith build, the Black Blade sword is a great option. Both the Black Blade weapon and incantation can be gained from remembrance of the Black Blade. Don't forget you can duplicate remembrances at the bell towers when you bring them down, and you can end up getting both weapons. So in this case, you can grab the incantation, and then you can grab the weapon and try it out later too, because the weapon's a lot of fun to use as well. But if you're going for high faith, the Black Blade incantation's the better option. It actually has a move set, by the way, where you could use it twice in a row too. And if you have two seals, one in one hand, one in the offhand, one in your main, one in your offhand, you can actually do a different move set too with it, which is pretty cool. So it's pretty awesome all around, and it does combine well with the Black Knife. Yeah, I end up running out of FP here, but in a second we're going to show you what it can do. It can actually hit twice, which is really cool. You get the first one, and then you get the second one, and you get some cool flips in between too. We're going to jump into equipment stats. We have the Black Knife +9, we have the Godslayer Seal, same armor set in the Confessor set, Ritual Swords Talisman, Sacred Scorpion Charm, Shard of Alexander, Phlox Canvas Talisman, Holy Tier, Faith Tier. We're buffing with Hellish Liurnia and Golden Vow. Something we want to mention real quick at IGN, when you're playing Elden Ring, which is an amazing game, and it can be a massive game and intimidating at times, be sure to have fun in between, do what you enjoy best, and whatever builds you like using, go with that. Use whatever you like using, you enjoy using, and keep the game fun. And of course, with all the great options available for Faith, you'll be taking down bosses and enemies easily. Even with Elden Ring being a challenging and big game, you'll be taking them down pretty fast with the amazing builds that Faith has to offer. That's it for our IGN guide on how to make a powerful and versatile Faith build. Be sure to check out our other guides, including our recent video on the best greatswords. There's also quests linked in the description and many guides on how to safely get through the lands between here at IGN. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get notified on all the latest IGN news.